welcome to the February 4th, 2021 Indian Point Citizens Advisory Panel. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all. Hey, thank you, everyone. My name is Teresa Knickerbocker. I'm the mayor of the village of Buchanan and also chairwoman of this panel. This evening we will be focusing on the Entergy employees. Our presenter this evening will be Tony Vitale, Site Vice President of Indian Point Energy Center. And also we will have a presentation by New York State Department of Public Service. Tom Cogden, the Deputy Chair and Executive Deputy, is with us this evening. Also, John Sipos, Deputy General Counsel. This is one of many more to come of these meetings, but tonight we're focusing on the employees. As mayor of the village of Buchanan and host community, not only the loss of revenue to the village was and is a huge concern, but also what would happen to the many employees who kept us safe all these years. They are our neighbors, they are our friends, who will be losing good-paying jobs. Generations of families worked at Indian Point. I knew many of the good, hard-working people that built Indian Point. Because of COVID, it's been difficult to plan a thank you for them, but I'm hoping to find a way still to thank them for operating the plant safely all these years. And of course, they are very much appreciated by the village of Buchanan residents. So I'm very interested this evening to hear the status of the employees at Indian Point. And I thank you. And Linda, my right-hand person, my fighter in arms with this from the very, very, very beginning. You have two passionate women here that are really fighting for the community and whatever we can do for the employees, whoever we can help, we are there. That's who we are. That's what we do. I have been blessed to have supervisors right at my side since the very beginning.
I gotta go one day.
Linda, thank you, and I hate to see you retire, but I know you will still be involved. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for your kindness and for your hard work. Would you mind if I just take a couple minutes and
absolutely.
Talk about our history on this journey together, along with the third leg of the stool, Superintendent Joe Hochreiter from Hudson School District. The three of us, we communicated immediately when we found out in January 4 years ago, Teresa, in 2017. Believe it or not, time goes by quickly, doesn't it? And so right away, the three of us decided that we were going to work together, partner together, because we all were facing these challenges, which Teresa just outlined: the loss of jobs, the loss of revenue, and et cetera. So there's many issues that we faced, and we knew that we were going to face as the years progressed. So we started, the three of us together, this local community task force. We held monthly meetings, sometimes twice a month, right, Teresa?
Yeah.
And then the three of us went up to Albany, and we testified. We went to editorial boards. We talked to a multitude of reporters. We updated our town board and village board and school board members on what we were working on and doing for the community. Each one of us posted up on our websites and Facebooks reports and updates, and I'm still doing that. I know Teresa is also. So on the first task force, this is now our third task force working together. As I said, the first one was a local. We had realtors. We had Debbie Malone from the Chamber of Commerce. We had members, of our boards. We had labor on our task force. Our librarian, Jill Davis, was on it. Charlie Graven and others from the Verplank Fire District, which will be affected by the losses also. So we had a myriad of people on this task force. We also had our elected officials from the state. Sandy Galiff has been with us from the beginning. Peter Harcum came on board and has been terrific working with us, and he and Sandy submitted legislation, 3 bills, very important bills. We touched on them last meeting, and I'm sure you will again, Teresa, tonight. They were eventually, last time we met, they weren't signed yet by the governor, but he found wisdom and he signed them. I like to say, but we thank him too for signing them. So they're going to be beneficial for us. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the only, it's not all the pieces, but it's a portion of it. But I just want to just emphasize working together side by side with the mayor, her trustees, with superintendent, their board, my board, and we have worked together. We've all been in this together. There really hasn't been any dissension. We fought together. We'll continue to fight together. And even though I'm retiring in 11 months, I'll still be there with you and for you whenever you need me, Teresa. You call upon me and I'll do whatever you need me to do. Okay, so that's the history, and I just wanted to remind everybody 4 years later what we have done. We did join a New York State task force. Tom Congdon, of course, from the state, chaired that endeavor, and we were pleased to be part of that. So a lot of things came out of that, including that DL English report that the state had hired the consultant to talk about perhaps developing some corners of the 240 acres sooner rather than later. So I don't want to steal Tom's thunder tonight, but he's been terrific to work with as well. Thank you, Tom. And now Teresa came to me and she had the idea to establish this important panel. I agreed wholeheartedly, and I thank you for chairing it. I'm your right-hand person. And as I said, I will be with you on the journey during this last year or post. So thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Your support has been much appreciated. Okay, thank you. So now we're going to do the introduction of our panel members. So how should I do this? You know what? Let's keep this organized. Let me start right from the very beginning, and I will go one by one. Okay, Thomas Congdon, you're on the top.
Hi, I'm Tom Congdon. I'm the Executive Deputy at the Department of Public Service and the Chair of the Indian Point Closure Task Force. And really very proud to partner with Mayor Knickerbocker, Supervisor Puglisi, our state representatives in Albany, Sandy Galiff and Pete Harcum, our county legislators, our county executive, our friends and brothers in labor. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight and to work with all of you on the state task force. Later on in the agenda, John Sipos, our Deputy General Counsel, and I will just give a brief update on the state side. Linda mentioned the legislation that was signed by the governor, and so we'll just provide a quick overview on that. Don't want to take up too much time because we have other important things to discuss, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the employee perspective at the plant. Our Department of Labor has been there on site for the past many months, working with the employees on future employment opportunities and providing them with information about services the state has to assist them in finding new employment in New York State. And so I'm looking forward to hearing more from the employee perspective tonight and looking for opportunities for the state to continue that partnership. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tom. It's been great working with you, too.
Teresa, if I may, just one more point. The county executive, George Latimer, has been a really good friend to us also, and our legislators. He's been working with us as well.
George has been a great partner. Nana Jo Green.
Nana Jo Green, I'm the environmental director for Hudson River Sloop Clearwater, and I also have been following this process for really very actively since 9/11. I also serve as a legislator in Ulster County, so I know what it's like both to be an activist and an elected official, and I'm very honored to be part of the NDCAP. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana Jo. Deputy Mayor Richard Funchen of the Village of Buchanan.
Hi, glad to be part of this. And Linda, I just want to say thank you for all your service and great help that you've been to town of Portland and to Buchanan, and we will dearly miss you. But Rich Funchen, Deputy Mayor of Buchanan.
Thank you, Richard. That's so kind of you.
Andy Galiff.
Hi, Sandy Galiff, Assemblywoman, and I just really kudos to Linda and Teresa, and kudos to Tom Condon, who worked really hard to be sure that we got those three bills passed and signed by the governor, and it happened New Year's Eve at about 8 o'clock at night before the ball came down in New York City. So, thank you so much. But I think the other good news, and I don't know whether you're going to report on it, the Cessation Fund in the budget went from 69 million to 140 million.
Wow.
So do I have that right, Tom? I hope?
You do, and that's really, the authorization language for the program to ensure that it takes into account the full award for the Indian Point communities in addition to the other known affected communities. So that is what is known, the known full exposure for the fund, and so the authorization was an important thing that was included in the executive budget. So thanks for mentioning that.
Right. No, very exciting. Thanks.
And thank you, Sandy, for all your support, especially with some of those bills that it was a challenge, but it happened. Thank you. Tom Carey.
Hi, everybody. And thank you, Sandy, and I wish Senator Harkin was on this evening as well, because I wanted to start off with thanking you for the three bills regarding Indian Point, and I thank Mayor Teresa Knickerbocker and Supervisor Puglisi. This all started, like Linda said, 4 years ago. I think our very first meeting was at the up in Peekskill. I forget the name of the building we were at, but it seems like yesterday. But here we are 4 years later, and we're still fighting. We got to keep up the fight. Everyone that's on this call, I've seen your faces at many meetings, and we're just going to continue to fight and get what's right for the people. So I thank you all for what you've done for labor. As a labor leader here in this community, Linda, you've been phenomenal. Teresa, you're phenomenal. Sandy Galiff, our board of legislators. If I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. Pete Harkham, you guys have been really phenomenal. For our school, our firehouse, our labor leaders. So thank you once again, and I'm proud to be part of this.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thanks, Tom. It's been a true teamwork, that's for sure. John Sipos.
Hi, good evening. Hello, everyone. John Sipos, Deputy General Counsel up at the Department of Public Service. Mayor Knickerbocker, Supervisor Puglisi, Superintendent Hochreiter. Thank you so much for the invitation. Looking very much forward to tonight and hearing the information. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Tony Vitale.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Tony Vitale. I'm the Site Vice President at the Indian Point Energy Center, and we'll be talking soon.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Thanks for being the presenter this evening.
Sure, Mayor.
John O'Mara.
Does it come off mute?
Yep, we can hear you. Oh, I don't think so. I don't think he came off.
Oh, here we go. There we go.
Okay.
My sons give me a hard time. They say I'm a slide rule type of guy. But I tell them when the apocalypse comes, I can build things with my slide rule. What are you going to do? There's going to be no power. So my background is in chemical engineering. I retired from the Department of Environmental Conservation as a regional spill engineer. I'm still involved tutoring math and members of the hazmat team. So I'm here to assist in any way I can. That's what I'm here for. The mayor asked me to be here, and I can help, I'll help.
Thanks, John. We appreciate you being on board. Will Smith.
Hi, everyone. William Smith, Vice President of Local 1-2, the utility workers. We represent the workers at the plant, and thanks for having me on the panel.
Thanks for being on the panel. All right, let's see. Al Libator. Hello, Al. Oh, you're on mute, Al. Al, did you? Oh, you're still on mute, Al. Oh, still on mute. Uh-oh. Okay. Mike? No. Al? No, he's still on mute. Okay. All right. Oh, there it is.
I got it.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, it's a long day.
I'm still working, actually.
Yeah.
I live at business agent with Teachers Local 456. We represent security officers at the nuclear power plant, as you know. I want to thank you for having me on this panel. And I would like to congratulate Linda Puglisi on retiring. I hope to get there one day myself, Linda. And I look forward to our conversation tonight.
All right, good. Thanks for being on the panel, Al.
Yes, I always say, Teresa, it's going to be a great book.
Yes. Oh my God. Nobody will believe half of it. The next, Mike Toomey.
Yes, Mike Toomey. I'm Entergy Corporation's representative on the panel. Thank you.
Thanks for being on, Mike. Richard Becker.
Thank you, Teresa. Richard Becker. I'm the Deputy Supervisor of the town of Portland, and I'm working under Linda Puglisi, and she's teaching me the ropes. So she's been the leader for many years, and we all wish her well, but she ain't going anywhere for a while, so she's still in. Thank you.
You got a good teacher there. Kevin Byrne, okay, he's on mute. Oh, okay, Don Dwyer.
Hi there, folks. Don Dwyer, local realtor, parent of a student in Hen Hud Schools, and homeowner in Montrose for 20 years. I just want to say thank you so much to all the labor at Indian Point. I've never once ever felt unsafe because of the quality people you have there. So thank you.
Yeah. Joe Hockwriter.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Hockwriter, Superintendent of the Hendrick-Hudson School District, and just briefly, I'll echo a lot of comments that Linda and Teresa made, thanking the state and the governor's team for being a very available and diligent partner as we go through this closure process, and again, wishing Linda a very healthy, long, and safe retirement. It's great working with you, and I know our work will continue.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
Tito Davila.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tito Davila, Special Indian Point Liaison for Senator Beat Harcum. Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And one of these days, Tito, I'm going to pronounce your last name correctly. Catherine Borgia.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't seem to figure out how to get my video to work, but I'm Catherine Borgia, County Legislator representing the area right around Indian Point, here to partner with all of you to make sure that this transition is as smooth and safe and equitable as it can be.
Thank you. Peter Loughran.
Yes, good evening, Teresa. My name is Peter Lauren. I'm the 4-county coordinator for Indian Point. I work in the Office of Emergency Management down in Hawthorne in Westchester County. So, and that's all right. My name is never pronounced right, so I'm used to it. My whole life has been pronounced differently.
My name hasn't been easy either, so, but we'll get it straight one of these days. We're working on it. Thank you. Deb Malone.
Hi, I'm Deb Malone, president of the Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber of Commerce, and I thank Teresa and Linda for including the business community on this panel.
Thanks, Deb. Colin Smith.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So sorry my video is acting a little funky tonight as well, but just to echo what's been said, it's been a pleasure to be part of this process. And I want to also just, especially say to Supervisor Puglisi to thank you for all your service and all the work that you've done surrounding this and so many other issues over the years. Your leadership has left a mark, and you'll be greatly missed upon your departure. But we look forward to having you around for the next 11 months and getting every ounce of that out of you as we can. And again, Mayor Knickerbocker, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. My name is Colin Smith, and I am the County Legislator for District 1, which includes Buchanan and the area where Indian Point is located. So I look forward to this evening for the updates and continuing our partnership as we work through this transition. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Colin, for your kindness. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Eileen Absinger.
I am a resident of the village of Buchanan on the planning board. I'm honored to be on this committee. I wish you a lot of happiness in your retirement, Linda. But I agree with Colin. We will get as much out of you as possible before you leave. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Have I gotten everyone, first of all? We good? I think I caught up with everyone. Okay, right now we're going to move on the agenda to the approval of minutes, December 10th, 2020. Do I have any comments, corrections to the minutes? No? Okay. So, on a motion to approve the minutes of December 10th, 2020?
So
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so who was my motion?
Put me down, Teresa.
Okay, Linda, okay. I heard a lot of voices.
Yeah, we'll take turns.
Okay, good, perfect. Okay, so now we have our presentation from Entergy. Tony Vitale will be our presenter this evening. So Tony, take it away.
I'm going to share I got the presentation. I'm going to share my screen so we can go on there.
Okay, good.
Sure. And Marcus, I understand you're going to advance the slides.
Yep, just give me a minute so I can share my screen, get that up and running.
Absolutely, thank you.
Can you see my screen?
We sure can.
Perfect. Yep. Go.
If you could, please just go to the next slide. Thank you, Marcus. So good evening, everyone. Before we get into tonight's discussion, I would like to take a moment and say thank you. Thank you to Mayor Knickerbocker and Supervisor Puglisi for your time this evening and for your efforts representing the thousands of people, including some of our own employees from Indian Point who live in the village and the surrounding town around Indian Point. And thank you for giving me some time this evening to share information with you about the most important asset at Indian Point Energy Center, our employees, and some of the efforts being taken to facilitate their transition to a new reality after it is permanently shut down, defueled, and transferred to a new company for prompt decommissioning. Next slide, Marcus, please. As the mayor commented earlier, the focus of this presentation and tonight's discussion is about our employees and all we are doing as a company and as a community and as a state to make this difficult transition as stress-free as it reasonably can be expected. Next slide, please, Marcus. Despite the pending shutdowns, Indian Point's leadership team is and always will remain focused on safe and reliable operations of Unit 3 through its final shutdown as we prepare for site decommissioning. Just over 4 years ago, when the permanent shutdown of the Indian Point Energy Center was announced, a dedicated decommissioning planning organization was formed, led by Rich Baroni, who is joining us this evening. This decommissioning organization is focused on the decommissioning milestones separate from the staff that is safely operating Indian Point Unit 3 and maintaining Indian Point Unit 2. My role as Site Vice President remains, as it always has been, through all of this, the health and safety of the public by operating our units safely and error-free. Whether we have 85 days of operation left, or whether we have 20 years of operation left. Additionally, Indian Point remains subject to all Nuclear Regulatory Commission oversight and regulation and licensing requirements and all of the activities that go along with that. Next slide, please, Marcus. At Indian Point and at Entergy Corporation, we understand and accept our role in the community. We accepted that role before the shutdown announcement, and we accept that role through the shutdown announcement to operate with complete transparency and open lines of communication with our numerous local, state, and federal stakeholders. Despite the limitations imposed by the pandemic and its limit on face-to-face meetings, face-to-face, which I absolutely personally prefer. I'm kind of a slide rule guy myself. We continue to participate in virtual meetings like this evening to update our stakeholders on key issues. And the Indian Point Community Advisory Panel is one example of that. There are two websites, one administered by the village and town, and another administered by Entergy, as listed on the presentation, that contains a lot of information regarding Indian Point's decommissioning. Next slide, please. Looking forward, sometime in the month of May, near the end of May, the separation of about 300 full-time Entergy employees from Indian Point will occur. Entergy remains compliant with all labor regulations and will be distributing WARN Act notices, which is Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification, to all impacted employees and some local officials. We expect this mailing to occur on or about February 12th with an email and also a hard copy mail to the addresses that we have on file. These notices, while legally required, will contain required information such as the expected separation date for each employee, the name of an Entergy contact that they can talk to, voice to gather information or ask questions, and information required by the WARN Act as required by federal and state laws. Next slide, please. At the time of the shutdown announcement, which was almost 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago now, Entergy committed to a talent absorption process, something that we called TAB, in which any and all qualified Entergy employees at Indian Point who are willing to relocate will be offered a position within the company. At the end of May last year in 2020, following the permanent shutdown and defueling of Unit 2, approximately 41 employees took advantage of that talent absorption program and relocated and assumed new roles within Entergy in other parts of the company. An additional 49 employees took advantage of what we called VESP, a voluntary early separation packages, so they could get on with the next phase of their life, whether that was retirement, whether that was work outside of Entergy, or whatever else they so chose. The next slide, please. So we continue today with that talent absorption process. In fact, we call it TAP Round 2. Currently, approximately 130 employees at Indian Point have expressed interest in talent absorption process Round 2 and transferring within the company following the permanent shutdown and defueling of Unit 3 sometime in late parts of May of this year. To facilitate that, Entergy has hosted multiple events where employees can learn about all of the other opportunities within the company. Some of these have been in-person events prior to the pandemic, and others has been virtual, similar to what we're doing tonight, as you would expect. These events were attended by Entergy business leaders and employees from throughout the company. Employee families were welcome to attend, and many, many did. Topics range from job opportunities to schooling to cultural attractions and favorite foods in different regions of the United States where Entergy operates. It was all done in an effort to help our employees make the best decisions for their future from both a personal, professional point of view. Next slide, please. For the employees not interested in the talent absorption process or those that took advantage of the voluntary early separation package, our dedicated nuclear professionals have opportunities in the Phase 1 decommissioning organization. Phase 1, as we've discussed, of decommissioning will begin after Unit 3 is shut down and permanently defueled in late May, following appropriate NRC notifications of our permanent defueling and cessation of operations. This Phase 1 staffing organization at Indian Point will consist of 312 current Entergy Indian Point full-time employees when completely and fully staffed. Next slide, please. So Entergy, in support of our employees, has hosted a number of workshops and provided many resources to assist our employees in their career transitions. From 401k and retirement savings strategies, to pension sessions, to benefit sessions, and to the 2 open houses that I've discussed. One was done in person, where over 500 employees and their families attended to hear about opportunities elsewhere within the company. And a virtual house, open house done approximately a year after that, which we provided similar and same kind of information. And we also had prompt and personal information provided by those employees that have already transferred and may be living in Arkansas, Mississippi, or Louisiana, or other parts of the company, where they could portray how that transition was and how their families are doing to lessen the stress that some of our employees may be feeling if they're interested in that TAP process. And finally, we've also provided free counseling to our employees who may be struggling with a difficult time dealing with the plant closure, dealing with the possibility of a complete relocation, and the pandemic has weighed in pretty heavily too in complicating all of this. Again, Entergy really does care about its employees, and all of this was done to assist our employees through this very difficult transition to make it as stress-free as we can reasonably expect and allow us to concentrate and continue to operate our units safely and error-free and protect the health and safety of the public. Next slide, please, Marcus. In addition to the support our employees have been receiving from the corporation, state government and local government support is readily evident. As commented earlier, we are working with the New York State Department of Labor for the benefit of our employees. We've held numerous meetings and seminars to identify what resources are available in New York State, and there are many, to our employees. We continue to hold regularly scheduled, at least monthly, all employee meetings virtually now to provide information to our employees about the transition to decommissioning, about transition to other parts of the company, and any and all future options our employees may have. Entergy is also working with the U.S. Department of Labor for additional benefits that may be available to supplement those that are available in New York State, also known as the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act for our employees. Next slide, please. As I stated, New York State has been extremely supportive of our employees. The New York State DOL has held 10 separate training sessions starting way back in 2019. Classes such as resume writing, interviewing techniques, using LinkedIn, and how to navigate the state employment site. Many of these classes have then ended or continued with some one-on-one sessions to help our employees with this transition. Nearly 300 employees have participated through these in-person or web classes as we progress through the pandemic. And all of these classes are now stored on the Entergy intranet, so employees can refer back to, or if for some reason they did not attend, they were able to go back and view what those classes were. In closing, our focus at Entergy and Indian Point, and my number one priority, has always been to protect the health and safety of the public and our employees, and to operate our plants safely and error-free. The actions we discussed here this evening were about just that. Lessening the stress to our employees from our final shutdown and decommissioning by providing ample opportunities for them to make the best informed decisions regarding their future, the best decisions for them and their loved ones, both personally and professionally. So I thank you for your attention this evening, and I'll open the floor up to questions.
Thank you, Tony, for the presentation, and I'm very happy to see the support that these good, hardworking, dedicated employees are receiving. Wasn't their choice to separate from the company, but I'm glad to see that the company is right there to support them and to help them with their future.
Yeah, Teresa, I just want to echo what you just said. No, I'm really, really pleased to see that the whole plan that Entergy put together for their employees, and that they have a lot of training, they're having a lot of counseling, and they have a lot of opportunities. So that is terrific, Tony. Mike is here too, so thank you both for doing that for our employees, for your employees. That's really wonderful. Can I also ask a question? I don't know if you said it. If you did, I'm sorry, I missed it. When you start to the defueling process, Tony, in May, how long will that take?
Approximately 12 days, Supervisor, from the actual shutdown, which will occur at 2300 hours on April 30th, to the time all the fuel is removed and in the pool and the vessel head is landed. Approximately 12 days. We don't usually give out too much information on outage.
Oh, okay, I understand.
But it's about that. Yeah. It's about that.
Okay, just wanted the timeline.
Sure.
All right. And thank you again for the presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Before we get into questions, I want to, I'm sorry, Rich Baroni, who is the decommissioning director. I'm sorry, Rich, I didn't mention you before. Sorry. Dennis Malice, Montrose Business Association, he's on. And also, County Executive George Latimer has joined us. Thank you, George. Thank you for your support through this also.
Did he hear me mention his name before? I don't know if he did.
No.
Teresa and I thank you for your partnership, County Executive.
So questions and answers from the panel. Tom Carey, I know you put something in the chat, but you know what, Tom? I would really like you to say what's in the chat.
Thank you, Mayor, because as we all know, Entergy they set the gold standard, right, for what they do for this community, our fire district, our schools, our small businesses, our big businesses, and of course, labor. I mean, my entire family, from my grandfather doing construction to Unit 1, to my dad, my sister, my brother, all my relatives, and of course, my brother and sisters through the Plumbers and Steamfitters 21, the Teamsters, the painters, the iron workers. I could go on for an hour, Tony, but Entergy has been a first-class gold standard for all the employees and for this community. And I can't thank you enough. I mean, it's bittersweet to see you guys go away because I have so many fond memories. And I was a general foreman at both plants for quite some time. And I have to say, it was one of the safest work environments that I ever encountered. And all of my members can attest to that. So, Tony, I thank you, and please pass it along to everybody at Entergy that you guys are phenomenal. Thank you.
Sure, Tom, I appreciate that. And, as a young pup, I stood alongside your father and I learned many things, as did Baroni sitting over there too. So, and I have to tell you, Tom and Al, the skill of the labor force that you provide is unmatched anywhere else in this industry for sure. So thank you for all of that. I know we've had many discussions, but the quality of the men and women that supported us is unmatched. So thank you for that.
Who else on the panel has any questions or comments?
Sandy has her hand raised, Teresa.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy, I didn't. So Marcus, do me a favor, because I can't always see the hands raised. If you could call the people that have their hands raised, that would be great.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
I'd just like to compliment all the employees too at Indian Point in providing megawatts of power over so many years and done a great job. I just kind of wanted to go through the numbers. I think on one of your slides, Tony, you said before everything closed down, were there 750 employees, or is that 750 employees today?
Today.
Oh, okay. So that, I was trying to do my numbers. How many did you have?
Would you like me to do them for you?
Yeah, well, I had 41, are relocating, but that was
no,
in addition to the
that's prior to.
Right. Okay. So we have a lot of employees still that we need to find positions for.
There's about 300, Sandy, that will be separating from the company. But out of those 300, I'm going to do some rough swags. About half are retirement eligible. Whether they will or not is yet to be seen. And then that leaves the rest that we are working hard and appreciate the efforts of New York State and local communities to place.
Okay, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. Okay. Well, how many did you start with before we closed down Indian Point 2?
We're about 950.
950. Okay.
Give or take, approximate numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I see Al Liberatore. He has his hand raised.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo some things that Tom said. And Tony, I know we never got a chance to meet, unfortunately. I heard a lot of good things about you through Kevin Jenkins. And I can honestly say, as you guys know, Entergy has been a great corporate neighbor. As far as the security officers, I believe a lot of people, quite a few are being transferred to other locations, and not necessarily in security positions, which companies do not have to do. Most corporations shut down and leave their employees stranded. So I believe Entergy did a great job in placing our members in other locations and assisting them in their retirement, And I know we're down probably, I don't want to give the exact number because I don't think we have it yet, Tony. I think we should have it sometime next week. But very minimal people will get a layoff because of this, because of the amount of people transferring, thanks to Entergy. And transferring, and some people are taking a voluntary layoff, maybe, and people retiring. So we may not lose that many members overall, and that's a good thing. I know when phase 1 kicks in, that's when the layoffs come, but it won't be many. Maybe somewhere down the road, there'll be some more, I know. But I do want to thank you for working with us on that and keeping a good majority of our security officers employed.
Sure, Al, thank you.
Greatly appreciated.
Any other questions or comments from the panel? Oh, Tom Cogden, I see your hand raised.
Anthony, that's just an excellent presentation. Really appreciate the comments and the notes about the other resources being applied to assist the employees. And I have a question about that in terms of other opportunities. Has there been any coordination that you're aware of with the regional utilities on potential opportunities at the utilities?
The short answer, sir, is yes. I'm not going to expand on that at this time as we firm up exactly what those opportunities will look like. But the short answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, no problem. Anyone else before I turn the presentation over to the state? And then we'll open up questions and answers for everyone after. And I do want to say Entergy was a good employer, but also a great neighbor. So that I will always say. So with that,
Mayor.
I will turn this over to Tom Cogden and John Sipos. The New York State Department of Public Service would also like to have a presentation this evening.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And we already touched on the topic for our update, which is the legislation signed by the governor that was sponsored by Assemblywoman Galef and Senator Pete Harcum. And with the support of many of you, we certainly communicated the interests of the local community, of the labor workforce, the taxing jurisdictions, and there was real positive engagement from the governor's office. There were some negotiations around the bills that have resulted in some technical amendments that John Sipos will discuss. And before I turn it over to John, I think some folks joined a little late, and so I want to make sure they heard some of the news we provided at the beginning of the meeting with respect to the executive budget. In the governor's executive budget, there was an expansion of the authorization to the ESD, Empire State Development, which administers the power plant cessation funding program. That authorization for the funding was increased to $140 million, which is the amount that is the known expense for the full award at Indian Point over the 7 years, Indian Point communities over the 7 years, as well as the other communities affected by power plant closures for the taxing jurisdictions. So that was a very positive piece of the governor's executive budget. We're obviously hopeful, and I'm sure with Assemblywoman Galef and Senator Harcum's support, that shouldn't be too controversial to move through the budget process. And as I think we've updated on the Cessation Fund before, that's the authorization in the budget for the program. We have a separate process underway at the Public Service Commission to establish the recurring funding mechanism to ensure that it's fully funded on a going forward basis and that there's not a need for annual appropriations. And so with those two developments, I think we're in a very solid position with respect to the Cessation Fund. And again, it's due to the really strong coordinated approach that we've taken as part of the state and local task forces to communicate the needs. So thank you very much for the partnership on all of that, to the mayor and supervisor and our state elected, Sandy and Pete, as well as the rest of the task force members. So thank you. And with that, I want to turn it over to John Sipos for a more detailed summary of what is actually in the bills that were signed by the governor.
I'll hold my question until John is finished, Tom.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you, Tom. Good evening again, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I was asked to provide a brief summary of the recent legislative events, and recognizing that we have some leading legislators here tonight. I hope I do everything justice on that score. So last year, the legislature passed and the governor signed bills relating to tax issues, and those legislative items would provide for first, the continuation of payments in lieu of taxes, or what are more commonly known as pilots, for retired facilities. And secondly, they would also provide for the ability to tax spent fuel storage systems. Also, at the end of the last year, the legislature and the governor agreed to, as Tom mentioned, the technical changes, what are also known as chapter amendments regarding various legislative initiatives. And legislation was introduced last month by Senator Harcum and Assemblymember Galef that would provide for the employees of the Indian Point nuclear power plant to be paid certain wages, essentially not less than the prevailing wage in the area, in the event that the plant is sold, transferred, or leased. Also, it would provide for a transferee or a purchaser corporation to be bound by collective bargaining agreements applicable to the current workforce. And third, last but not least, it would clarify and confirm that the public service law is applicable to retired nuclear power reactors and their support systems and structures, their storage facilities, and their property. And one other topic I did want to touch on was that the Department of Public Service is working to establish an Indian Point decommissioning board, and that board would advise and assess how to protect the financial, environmental, and physical interests of the communities impacted by the decommissioning, including its workforce and the continuing protection of public safety in the area. So that's the summary of the recent legislative efforts, and I'll turn it back to Mayor Knickerbocker, Supervisor Puglisi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, John. Teresa, could I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. First of all, we've come a long way. Last year at this time, I think there was only approximately 45 million in that quote-unquote cessation fund. So this extra 100 million is really a home run. It's really terrific. Thank you for reporting that this evening. We all collectively have been lobbying for that. I've spoken to Tom Cogden, maybe 300 times on the subject. Tom, just update us on how many communities throughout New York State are tapping into the Cessation Fund. I think one or two of them was going to end their 7-year stint. Is that right?
Yeah, there are no new communities that have come into the program. So it's the same as last reported. The communities that closed prior to Indian Point were Somerset and Huntley, so it's out in Western New York, and so those communities have been drawing down on the fund, but no additional communities have come in. So Indian Point's next, and the authorization language that was introduced in the executive budget covers all known expenditures on the horizon.
That's terrific. So Indian Point then moves up the ladder to be next in line to tap into this important fund.
Well, it's not so much a function of, you know, who's in line. It's a function of when the plants close, and the next closure and the next communities that will become eligible are Indian Point. That's right.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then the PSC, you and I have spoken about it, the decommissioning board that John referred to will include locals like the mayor and
yes, absolutely. We're starting from the state task force in terms of the membership there, and we're gonna grow it from that.
And that's important. I know Sandy mentioned it before, and Teresa and I, of course, have written about it. That's important. And then the mayor and I and the superintendent will continue this panel also in parallel to that.
That makes a lot of sense, and we really view it as a complement, not in conflict with. It's really going to be something that, just like we've done with the state and local task forces, maybe I could envision even some joint meetings, but we're looking to just bring the state resources to the table, and I see it as a complementary effort, so it'll be good.
Right, so that's the prototype, the two other task forces we had. So. All right, so like I said, a lot of progress in a year, actually, in a year. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Teresa, if I could ask a question.
Oh, yeah, sure, Joe. Yes.
John, I'll direct this to you, but you may not be able to answer it, so no pressure. In our school community, we're looking at another few tough years of significant tax increases given the reduction of the pilot. After the governor signed into legislation the fact that the spent nuclear fuel can be taxed, that gave a lot of people a sign of relief. Could you walk us through, and if not, maybe it's a conversation for another day and another team, but what the timeline will look like? Because I think there's an understanding that this will bring immediate financial relief, or that the town or whomever will slap this huge tax on Indian Point or on whomever, and it will bring a lot of revenue to the district in a short period of time. And I'm trying to temper expectations, but trying to find out what the roadmap looks like to enact what the governor signed into law.
Right, so I want to be careful in answering that question. I think there are some aspects of it that I probably am not fully aware of, and there are timelines that would be outside of the control of the Public Service Commission. But it is correct. The law has been amended so that the storage facilities are now included as taxable items within the real property tax laws. That is correct. As to the question about the timeline, I guess I'd want to say to Superintendent Hochreiter that I think in some ways that timeline is a function of the local taxing jurisdiction and appraisal process in conjunction with the taxable entity. What is the rateable? In looking at the statute, I don't believe there is a specific timeline, either short or long. I think it is a process in conjunction. If I could actually talk about another statute that we also discussed a short while ago, where the local taxing jurisdictions, have the opportunity to enter into negotiations with the owner operator, and depending on what are the priorities and how the parties deal with that, there is the opportunity for the pilots that I mentioned before, or also not to go down that route. So I think to your direct question, what is the timeline? I think the timeline is in the control of the local taxing jurisdiction. I think they have been given you all have been given the authority by the legislative amendments to go forward, much like you would in other instances. So, Joe, I don't know if that addresses your question, but that's my first cut at it right now.
No, it does, and I appreciate it. And I guess I would just use this as a moment to create some communication efforts on our part at the local level, then with Teresa and Linda, because I think there is there's a big and a growing expectation that has really great potential to help solve some of our short and long range financial problems, which I believe that it may, but we have to communicate and temper expectations so that folks don't anticipate something that's just not possible as we put a budget together over the next 8 to 10 weeks. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jill, that is definitely correct. And once again, as I said in my intro comments, the three of us will be working together. Our town attorney, Tom Wood, our town assessor, Tom Wakens, the mayor, village administrator, Marcus, with you, Joe, and with your financial administrator, we'll be working together on the timeline of when, how much they can be assessed, but the legislation really gives us the entree to be able to do this. So it's going to be really productive and beneficial especially for the school district, And so if they haven't already, they're going to be reaching out to everybody to start to get going on this. Town board and I spoke to Tom about it recently as well. So, so it's a good thing. As I said to Tom Congdon, there has been so much progress made in this last year, and we thank the state officials again for helping us.
And Joe, to your answer, this is a process, and it's the beginning of the process. But as Linda has said, as we have been from the beginning, we've been working together. You, the school district, the village of Buchanan, the supervisor, and really this has been such a great team effort. Everybody has just worked together for the benefit of the community. Not to mention Sandy and Pete. I mean, everybody has been a team. So we have been fortunate that way. Nana Jo.
Thank you. I wanted to focus in for a minute on the Decommissioning Oversight Board and say that there was a lot of work and good thinking on the part of the bill sponsors and a lot of input from community members, from labor, from local elected officials, and the most recent version added in addition to the governor and legislative majority appointment, legislative minority appointments, and was going to add in additional local community members and additional labor representation. There's also in the bills, the various versions of the bill, first responders, scientists, a very comprehensive and inclusive representative body. And my question for the Public Service Commission, now that instead of that legislation going to the floor and passing, and it would have been modified to include the local concerns, and it had very widespread support. it is now a function of the Public Service Commission, and I wanted to ask to what extent the composition of the Decommissioning Oversight Board, the frequency of meetings, and who does the appointments. And then I also want to encourage an opportunity at each, how often, quarterly or more often was recommended. And I want to ask that, or strongly urge, that there be a period of public comment, which would be different than the Indian Point closure task force. People were able to send in public comment, but it wasn't real time at the meeting. I have one other topic I want to ask about, but I want to focus just on how closely will the Public Service Commission version follow the legislation proposed by Assemblymember Galef and New York State Senator Peter Harcum.
Thanks, Manna. Well, the directive from the governor to establish the task force did not come with all of the detail of the legislation, other than the broad categories of people we should be including on the task force, which definitely includes scientific experts, technical experts, environmental representatives, local representatives, and state agency resources, among others. So, and labor, of course. We view it as, we view the state closure task force as a starting point, but obviously the membership has expanded. The sort of focus is more on the decommissioning aspects than the broader issues of the closure task force. But as we get closer to the actual closure, a lot of the issues we've been discussing over the years and the progress we've made that Supervisor Puglisi was just talking about are addressing some of those other aspects. And the new challenge for all of us, I think, is going to be to make sure that the decommissioning is done as safely as possible, and that the community has a venue to be updated and to have a venue to express concerns. And so I take your point, Nana, about the public comment aspects, and that will be definitely considered as part of our planning for this. So yeah, we're going to look at the legislation to help guide us, but that wasn't, all those details were not included in the directive to the department to establish this and get it stood up.
And I have one more question, and it is a question that reflects the fact that local, state, and federal officials have been very concerned that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has not held a public hearing on the license transfer. We have been recommending, and there is interest on the part of our federal elected officials to hold such a public hearing. We've also asked that a joint public hearing, as was convened several years ago with Entergy before the introduction of the idea of transferring the license to Holtec, there was a joint public hearing of the Assembly and Senate. Several of us attended that. And at that point, it looked like what's called Safe Store was going to be Entergy's solution instead of active decommissioning. But the Public Service Commission, in addition to some unanswered questions that are being appealed by the New York State Attorney General and by Riverkeeper, the Public Service Commission has the ability or the jurisdiction essentially of saying yay or nay to the license transfer. And I wonder if the Public Service Commission might be in a good position to hold a really comprehensive public hearing before making its decision. I know that Assembly Member Galef, Senator Peter Harcum, and Senator Gillibrand, Schumer, and Congresswoman Nita Lowey, and many others have called for this public hearing. And I think it is an opportunity to really review the concerns that have been raised. So I wondered if the Public Service Commission would consider hosting that, maybe jointly with our federal and state elected officials.
Oh, we can certainly consider that and take it back, Manna. I think that our proceeding certainly allows for that, so I think we can take that back, and we'll keep you informed as to our plans on that front. John, do you have anything to add?
I would add that there was an effort on the part of state agencies to get a hearing before the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, not unlike the type of hearing that we had for the license renewal phase back in 2008 to 2017. And I guess I would also note that that the NRC on January 15th, one of the last days they had a full quorum, voted not to provide for that hearing, but it was a close vote. It was a split vote. It was a 3-2 vote. And, two of the commissioners did note that, it was their view that there should have been a hearing. So, I do know that state agencies, including the Attorney General's office and other agencies, had sought to obtain that hearing.
John, the town has as well. We've written as well. So
exactly.
The 3-2 vote, you want to elaborate on that? That was to reverse the decision, to go forward with the hearing? What was that?
There were various aspects, but I think in a nutshell, it was a 3-2 vote. 3 commissioners voted not to provide the town, the village, the school district, the state of New York, and other requesters the opportunity for a hearing. So 3 voted against it, but 2 commissioners said that it was important, and that, I'm paraphrasing here, that the proposed interveners had set up an adequate basis for a hearing, as did occur back in the license renewal.
John, don't you have the authority to appeal that?
In that precise aspect, requesting a hearing on the license transfer, it was the town, the village, the school district, the Attorney General's office on behalf of the state of New York, and I believe Riverkeeper. So those were the parties there. I would also note that the Department of Public Service did submit a detailed letter on the waiver aspect, which was another aspect of the transfer. And the Department of Public Service, articulated and submitted and voiced its concerns over the proposed waiver of a generally applicable federal regulation that would, pertain to the decommissioning trust and its scope of its funds. So DPS did weigh in on that.
I'm sorry for belaboring this, as Manna says, it's so critical and so important to us here to have this hearing so everybody's voices can be heard. Do you think that there is a opportunity, a possibility that they may go forward with the hearing, or should we get a trip down to Washington? What do you think?
So as a lawyer, as Tom's lawyer, should be really careful and not,
I know.
Advice to others. I actually, under the rules of professional responsibility, I want to be really careful about that.
I understand.
There are probably other people on this platform, like Mike Toomey, who would have a view on that as well. So I think it would behoove me not to provide direct advice on that, but I know that many entities on this call are represented by able counsel, and I'm sure they are up to speed and willing to discuss and advise.
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. I apologize.
That's fine. No problem at all.
Okay. Thank you, John, for that opening for me, because we appear to be veering off the runway very quickly. This agenda was supposed to be about the employees this evening. I know Sandy would like to say something, so I'm gonna Sandy, I saw that you were interested in saying something. Is it in reference to this? If it is, that's fine. No? Okay. Manna, I do appreciate your comments, but I do want to respond back to you. The real-time responses, the reason why we ran, there was no real-time responses, because as you remember, the meeting went on. There was a lot of information at the last meeting about the spent fuel cask. And that's why we just ran out of time to answer them. I do want to thank everyone that submitted questions. They were very good questions. I read through all of them and I was impressed with the questions. I also want to thank Holtec for responding and to those questions and answering those questions too. So that was the only reason why we didn't get into real time. We went into overtime with the presentation because there's just so much information, really.
And it was an excellent presentation. I was actually talking about the fact that I don't believe there was opportunity for public comment at the Indian Point Closure Task Force.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Which the Public Service Commission facilitated. So I was directing it. You have really encouraged public comment, and I greatly appreciate that.
That's what this panel is all about. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else, we'll go back to the employees since we have two presenters here that could answer any questions that you might have. Anybody else on the panel? Because then I will open it up to the public. No, we're good? I don't see any hands. Okay. All right, so we're going to open this up for questions. A reminder, there is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. And as always, we will be respectful to one another. Okay, anybody, public comment period, anybody have any questions or comments?
Just want to say, Teresa, anybody that's interested in making a statement, they can raise their hand or put something into the chat. If you're on your cell phone, hit *9 to raise your hand, or hit on the screen to raise your hand, and Teresa can recognize you. The things coming, or make a chat and Teresa will read it out to you. Thank you.
And Marcus, if I missed anybody.
No problem. Yeah, Teresa, there's a couple of items in the chat. No one has raised their hands, but just in the chat so far.
Okay, I do see a few questions in the chat, but it doesn't pertain to the employee situation. I see one, Nancy Van, what about the New York State Attorney General's lawsuit, which gets into, maybe that's a meeting we have to have about lawsuits and everything else going on in the world. I don't know. There's another one, I don't know who it is, there's just initials. Now that the NRC composition is going to change because of the change in administration coupled with the resignation of the current chair of the NRC, is there a mechanism for review or reconsideration of the decisions for a public hearing? Okay, that's another public hearing question. Dwayne Jackson is on, great meeting, thanks to all the workers. From trustee Dwayne Jackson.
Yeah, Teresa, no one else has raised their hands. Just another chat came in, I saw.
Okay, and there is another chat, but this is something we are going to have one of the meetings on. This is from Tina Bongar. She has a question about community evacuation protocols. When will I be able to ask that? Sometime this year. There's going to be, probably several more meetings this year, Tina, and we will have a meeting pertaining to that.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone's good? No other comments?
Good meeting.
Yep, I do not see anything, Teresa.
All right. I want to thank our presenters. I want to thank Tony Vitale and as always, Mike Toomey. Thank you guys for the presentations and working with this group. I want to thank Tom Cogden, John Sipos, for always participating and being part of this. Like I said, this is a team effort. This is very big for our community. This is probably the biggest thing that's ever happened to the Village of Buchanan, other than the power plants coming to Buchanan. So the support's much appreciated from Sandy, from Peter Harcum and Sandy Galiff. We've all been like one voice and working hard together. I also want to thank the panel. I mean, this is not only is this interesting, but you're part of our community and you're helping us go through this decommissioning process. And I really appreciate the time that you put in with all this. Just everybody that's on the panel, you guys are the best. Your heart is in the community and for the employees. And I can't thank you enough. And I think I've thanked everyone. I don't want to miss anyone out. Can you miss anyone out of there?
I just want to let you know, George Latimer, County Executive, I've been listening in. Happy to participate.
Thank you, George. And we definitely appreciate your participation and your support. You have been another team player for us, and we definitely appreciate that.
Teresa, the county executive has, right after he got sworn in, he was at our meeting and he's been there for us all the way through. So we appreciate his participation.
Yes, definitely, George. There's one other thing in the chat box, Courtney. Okay, future meeting with relevant entities where we could ask any and all questions we have and get answers would be useful. Well, we usually have a subject, so hopefully your questions will get answered under one of the subjects that are coming up in the near future. There's a lot of outstanding questions and we may be losing valuable time, but if it's a question pertaining to the spent fuel cask or any of the other presentations we've done so far, Courtney, please put that, if you could send us those questions and we will answer them. Any questions, we will answer them at the next meeting, but you can go to the Village of Buchanan site or you can go to the Town of Portland site to see the meetings, the questions that were answered from Holtec, or if you would like to contact our administrator, Marcus Serrano, he will forward the questions to any appropriate people to answer them.
Teresa, maybe in the future you might want to invite the town assessor, Tom Wakens and Tom Wood to come in and talk about the process, about assessing the dry cask storage units,
Linda, that might be a good meeting for the town task force.
Okay.
Maybe we'll set something up that would probably be more appropriate for,
Okay, sure, and that would be open to everybody as well. So.
Okay, good.
All right, will do.
Okay, all right. So, Sandy, I'm sorry, I see that hand up there. Okay. Take yourself off mute.
Quick thought, because there are a lot of issues, in the sense of entity leaving the facility. Maybe the next meeting could be exactly what they are working on in the way of, what's the status with the spent fuel rods, how they're going to go through, what's happening with the closure exactly. Because I don't think by that point, and I really hope that there could be a public hearing with the PSC, but I don't think they're going to have approvals anyway. So I think maybe to have the Entergy people come and try to answer all those questions that may come up, that some of the ones that were in the chat might be helpful.
Okay. All right. That's good point. And just to mention to you, to everyone, the tentative meeting, the next meeting will be April 8th, and that's tentative. Linda and I will work that out. And if that's all we have this evening, I would thank everyone once again, and I would like to thank everyone for their participation. And on a motion to close the meeting?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.